tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are conductor Alan Robert Gross and actress-writer Adria Tennor. Conductor Alan Robert Gross was born and raised in New York, where he went to Music and Art High School and Queens College. He earned a master's from UC Berkeley in musical history and a doctorate from Stanford. Alan, you went to Vienna,
Yes.
To the academy there. And did you always want to conduct, or was it music in your background? How did this start?
I guess while I was in high school, I was interested in becoming a conductor. And, you know, with various detours along the way,
Was it?
finally did, you know, go for it in that regard. And the interesting thing was, when you asked about Vienna, I've always been interested in teaching as well as conducting. And when I finished my doctorate, I was looking for teaching positions that would be involving conducting. And there were only two that I had heard about. One was in Bemidji, Minnesota, and the other wasn't. So my conducting teacher said, well, why don't you go to Europe and learn the craft the old-fashioned way, which is working in an opera house, coaching singers, playing for stage rehearsals on the piano, and then getting the opportunity to conduct the occasional performance.
Wait, was it school, actually?
No.
Was it a school?
Well,
no, it was
I
actually on site.
Well, actually, I was in the conducting class for a year in Vienna.
I see. That's
mostly learning opera repertoire and polishing up my German.
And what do they do? You'd been taking opera since in college. You'd been taking opera, not opera, but conducting.
Sure.
And so was there more to learn about conducting? What do you learn in a school?
There's always more to learn about conducting, and unfortunately, most of it you learn from experience.
Ah.
I mean, it was, the great Austrian conductor Karl Böhm was once saying, was once asked, that must be very hard to conduct an orchestra. And he said, well, after you've been doing it for 40 years, it's not so hard.
But it is. You have to know how to read all the music, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Are you a musician yourself?
Right. I play piano.
So
my
did that
primary
help?
instrument.
Do you have
Of
to
course.
be a musician?
I would like to think so, and the orchestra
would too.
musicians would like to think so, that the person in front of them has their respect as a musician.
So that's what I wonder
Right.
too. And you don't just pick up a baton or your hands and start conducting.
No. That's what I did when I was a kid, probably.
Did you? What do you use when you conduct?
Well, I use a baton.
You did. You brought one. Let
But
me
I brought
see.
actually two.
Oh, good.
This is the one I usually use.
This one is darker than that one.
And well, that's made of wood, and this one is fiberglass.
Oh, it looks like ivory.
Yeah, well,
They both weigh the same.
pretty much. Hmm.
And
I happen to like the feel of a wooden baton. Actually, and you can't get them in this country. I get them actually in Vienna.
and when you rehearse, you use them. When you conduct, you use them. Do you use different ones?
Well, sometimes in rehearsal I'll use the
This one.
the fiberglass one. So if I have to throw it at somebody or break it or snap it in anger, it won't break.
Does it break?
No. This one breaks occasionally. So
What?
So I have a couple of these.
A conductor is like a full-time job, but when you were starting conducting as an actor or like an actor, did you have to have a day job?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think most conductors are actually either conducting full-time or conducting part-time and doing other things. Either they have, for instance, a number of my colleagues in LA who conduct smaller orchestras have a few orchestras.
A few?
Yeah. And I teach at Occidental and Caltech, where which is my, shall we say, my primary gig and have an orchestra
I
there,
see.
as well as the Santa Monica
Oh,
Symphony.
you do? And
Yeah.
you have the Santa Monica Symphony. How long have you been with the Santa Monica Symphony?
17 years.
That's a long
Yeah,
time.
it is. Uh-huh.
Is the symphony orchestra the same as an opera orchestra?
Well, that depends on where you are. Usually, no. But the Vienna, for instance, the Vienna Philharmonic is actually the opera orchestra of the Vienna State Opera.
Oh, I see.
But that's very rare. I mean, that's an exception.
But
Most
can you
orchestras
do-
are
can you-
orchestras.
Can you do the same? Do you have the same technique with an opera orchestra, a symphonic orchestra?
I think training in opera is probably the best training for conducting a concert orchestra.
You mean knowing opera or
Yes.
singing, actually?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, really?
A couple of things. One, you learn to accompany. You must be aware of everything that's going on the stage with your soloists. So when you're conducting a concerto, for instance, when you're conducting a romantic violin concerto, it's the same kind of principle as when you're accompanying an opera aria from the orchestra pit.
exactly.
You have to have the same kind of develop communication, sort of, almost extrasensory feel for what your soloist is going to do.
And also in an opera, well, if you're in the symphony, you've got all these people. How big is your symphony, your Santa Monica Symphony?
Well, the largest we've ever done is when we did Mahler Fifth Symphony. And with me, it was 100 people on the stage.
So that's 100 people, but counting the counting the voices or just the symphony?
That's
Just the symphony.
purely orchestral.
Okay, so you can't treat each one of them like you would an opera singer. If you're doing opera, if you're conducting an opera, you have like several soloists that you can relate to, right?
Right.
But you can't do that with a large symphony.
Yes and no. I like to think that when I'm conducting an orchestra, I'm actually relating to my musicians in the way that an opera conductor relates to the singers on the stage.
Oh, you do?
I
So
like to
each
think
group,
that. Yeah.
Like a group of violins?
Right.
I see.
You know, I just like to feel as though these are people, and they are, of course, who are as important to the success of the musical endeavor, if you like, as the singers on the stage.
So your general size of your symphony, of your orchestra, is what, would you say?
Oh, probably 80.
And how do you get those people to come and play? Do you audition them?
We contract them.
Oh,
we
you do. But, I
we
mean,
have
do
a number
you?
of people. I don't. We have a contractor who engages the musicians. The Santa Monica Symphony is a very peculiar animal, if you like.
Tell us about it, because where do they play?
It's a mixture of professional musicians and volunteer community musicians who are not doing their day jobs as musicians, but who are really very fine musicians in their own right.
So some are paid and some aren't paid.
That's correct.
In that regard.
Right.
And you give your performances where and you don't charge.
We don't
It's a
charge.
community service.
Yeah. The Santa Monica Symphony performs at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium.
That's so fabulous.
Yeah.
And what about the acoustics? It works?
It's not bad. There are many worse places. It's a very clean hall. And from my standpoint, it's very nice because what I hear on the stage is pretty much what the audience is going to hear. I don't have to second guess balance. I mean, it doesn't have a shell. For instance, if you look at multi-purpose auditoriums that are built, even the Chandler Pavilion, for instance, for the Philharmonic playing there when it played at the Chandler, there's a specially constructed shell. Royce Hall in UCLA has a special shell that's enclosed and allows the sound to focus and project out.
I see. Did they
the
bring
Santa
it
Monica
on?
Civic doesn't. We just have some rear baffles.
And then you talk about, say, the program. Do you choose the program
I do.
yourself?
I have the great luxury of being able to choose what pieces we do.
And then does the orchestra have to learn what you've chosen, or do they know it, or before?
Well, some of them have played it before, especially if they're in that group of really fine LA professionals who play with us. And of course, as we go through things, people have played them a couple of times. But basically, that's what we rehearse. That's our rehearsal process. Is to learn the music.
So you've guest conducted in Cuba and China.
Right.
Do you have the liberty of choosing your own program in those places?
There, I was in Cuba. I was asked to do a program of American music. There's a new music festival that goes on every year, and I was asked to bring a program of American music. Only one composer they had wanted a specific work from, and the rest of it I chose myself.
And then do you use their orchestra when you're guest conducting?
Well, this was the orchestra in Matanzas, which is the second largest city in Cuba.
Oh, it was. So they have their own orchestra.
Yeah.
Oh, they do. What's your favorite and least favorite part about being a conductor?
Least favorite. I'm not sure. The favorite parts certainly are being able to communicate through musicians something very, very special of the human spirit. I mean, it's interesting. I was talking about this the other day, that on the one hand, we as conductors and musicians are responsible for, conveying and representing the most profound impulses of the human spirit. And at the same time, we're like kids in a candy store. I mean, we've got all this wonderful stuff to play with in that regard too.
So that's that's a good part.
Yes, exactly.
And do you come out and talk to your audience and tell them that this is my favorite piece of candy I'm giving you tonight?
I hope that they'll notice that without my saying it.
But do you talk
But
to
I
your
did talk
audience?
to the audience a little bit. I didn't for a number of years. I started doing that. We have a wonderful pre-concert lecture series that is, and I don't want to steal that thunder from our wonderful lecture. But I found that audiences do like if I say a couple of things. I try and distill what I want to say very, very, very short.
I know as an audience member, I love it. I go, oh, the conductor's turning around to talk to us. This is so great. It just, I don't know, it just ties us together somehow.
I think that's true. And I think that's something that, if you notice, for instance, look at a lot of orchestra ads, the Philharmonic, LA Chamber Orchestra, a lot of their publicity focuses more and more on pictures of the actual musicians, even sometimes the interview, in their publicity materials. And this is part of it, that there's a sort of a barrier that's perceived, that's grown up over the years, I think, with the development of concert, of the concert, that sort of there's them and the audience. And the audience doesn't really know who the them are. And part of this is breaking down this barrier. Well, you go to a jazz club, you sort of have a sort of instinctual connection with the musicians.
Because you're on the same level?
They're on the same level. They may be dressed informally,
I see.
etc. They may not have sometimes a piece will just begin rather than saying, we are now going to play. Or there's a program that says, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And I think what we're trying to do in most orchestras now, we're trying to break down this perceived barrier. Either the conductor talks, or especially when we have a new piece, I like to have the composer there, and the composer can talk to the audience.
That's great.
So they really get a sense, these are real people who are making music. It's not a disembodied experience.
And you have made music for us today.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you very much, Alan Robert Gross. And thank you for watching this part of the Joan Quinn Profiles. We'll be right back with actress Adria Tennor. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with Adria Tennor, actress, writer, who was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. She went to high school in Michigan, in Maryland, and earned a BFA from NYU Tisch School. She went to acting and stage directing. Were you going to be a director?
Well, my high school drama teacher told me that I couldn't act, so I started directing in high school.
You started then?
Yes, I did.
So you really wanted to be a star at that time?
Yeah, I like to tell people what to do.
Oh, directing was good then.
Yeah.
But you went to school in Maryland, right?
In Maryland, I went to high school, yeah.
With Ed Norton?
I did. I went to high school with Edward Norton. He graduated a little before me.
Did he want to be an actor too then?
He had always been interested. He'd always studied acting. There was a theater in our town where he'd always performed. He did a lot of other things, and I was really surprised when I found out that he was, he'd gone back to acting. So, but I mean, he's a natural. He's so smart.
Did your paths ever cross in acting classes or on stage or in film?
We have not. We have not. Our paths have not crossed that way. I've seen him out, but I have not seen him in an audition or anything.
When you were studying acting in New York, did you have any roles there? Did you expect to stay there?
I did. The first part I ever had was as a 12-year-old boy in Hal Hartley's movie. Do you know Hal Hartley? He's a great indie director. So that was my first role.
So how did you get that? You played a 12-year-old
boy, yeah. Yeah.
What'd you do?
Well, I just put my hair back. I put on, I don't have much to hide here in this way, but I just put my hair back and I put on a loose T-shirt, and I just went in and I read it like how I thought a little boy would read it. The scene was I'm looking at a porno magazine with Martin Donovan, and he felt like that scene would be, sort of offensive to his female audience. But if he put this female presence in that scene, then it gives it a whole other sort of arty twist. So
or a youngish person, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it was a young boy, that would be kind of questionable. So anyway.
So was that your first break?
That was my first break, and then I played the young Diane Keaton in the First Wives Club.
That was so soon. Was it all coming right after high school? Right after?
Yeah, it was really.
That was great.
Yeah, it was really, really great.
And were you on the set with Diane Keaton?
Because I played her, she wasn't there. She wasn't called because I didn't have a scene with her. So
yeah,
I don't know if she really. I've met her now. I've met her several times, but I don't know if she. I don't know how, if they wanted to meet their younger counterparts. I don't know if they really wanted to.
So that was First Wives Club?
Yeah.
And what'd you do with that? Did you study how she acted?
I watched all those movies. I watched
you?
Annie Hall, and I think I really, I got a lot of compliments on how I captured her.
Did they try to make you look like her?
Yeah, I mean, my hair at the time was her color, but it was
what I wondered,
it was like a 60s, they wanted to establish that we were friends from college, so they bouffoned my hair, and so it was just really the facial expression.
Oh, well, you weren't a little kid then. You were a little bit older,
yeah,
weren't
I was
you?
like college age,
Yeah. Well, now we have to go back and see that. When you first came to LA, did you start in TV right away, or were you?
Yeah, I've done a lot of commercials, and I've done a lot of little, guest stars. I had a role on JAG for a while. I played.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Crossing Jordan.
Crossing Jordan, I played. Yeah, that was really fun. And all these people are so sweet. Jill Hennessy is so sweet, and Catherine Bell is so fantastic.
Do you think it's because you're so nice?
I don't know. I think I'm nice, and maybe I've definitely worked with some jerks, but we won't talk about them. But the other thing about working with these women is I learned so much from them. I really learned a lot from just watching Catherine Bell, just acting opposite her. She's really, just keep your eyes open. You never know what'll happen.
You were in Friends too?
I was on Friends. It was fantastic. I work in a restaurant, so I meet all these producers, and that's how I get all these shots.
Are you kidding? No.
No, that's how I've gotten most of my jobs. I mean,
this is so weird because they always say actors are waiting tables, right?
Right.
And what's your day job? I'm waiting on tables. I'm at a restaurant.
Well, I look at it as I'm at my day job, but I'm on the lookout here, and
but it's really
networking.
Funny. It's really funny because you think about actors being waiters because they want to make enough money to go to acting class or to do something.
And have their days free, have a flexible schedule, but
But what happens with you?
I just, the place where I work, Campanile, is a place where people come a lot. We have a lot of regulars. It's been there forever, and we have a really solid client base. And so I just wait on these people over and over, and I get to know them, and then they get to know me, and then they like me, they want to help me, and
But it's just building up a friendship.
Yeah, a relationship. Yeah.
Do you need an agent?
No, I have an agent. I am my agent. No. I have great agents. I'm happy with that.
So you do everything that an actress has to do.
I need a writing agent. That's what I would like to.
Because you're starting to write now.
I'd like to pursue that more.
But that's the thing you're doing. You've done 3 one-woman plays.
Right. Well,
Tell us about the first one.
The first one was called "There's Not a Lot of Coat Check Work in L.A."
And that's kind of like working at a coat check.
Well, yeah, I talk about how I'm talking about moving to LA. Like I checked coats in New York, and that's how I made my living. And now I'm in LA, and that was the title. But each of these little pieces, I did that show, and then I did another show called Electromagnetic Stripper, and each of these pieces became this whole show that I'm doing now, Strip Search.
Oh, so those were but were they hour stand-ups?
No, those were little pieces. The first one was like 15 minutes. I did it in a series of one acts with some other people.
I see.
Yeah.
And then the next one, the same kind of thing?
Electromagnetic Stripper was about a half an hour, and I did that with another woman. And the reason it was called Electromagnetic Stripper is because her show was about electromagnetic auras and fields. And mine was about being...
So Strip Search...
Yes.
Which is your one-woman play at the Whitefire Theater.
Yes, and that's a whole play.
That's a whole play.
What
is it, 90 minutes? 65 minutes?
It's 70 minutes.
70 minutes.
Yeah.
And so you knew part of it.
Yes.
Because you'd done part of it.
Yeah.
Then how did you integrate it all? And what does it cover? It covers so many things, I can't believe.
Yeah, let's see. Well, again, and when I was writing these little pieces and doing these little pieces, I didn't know, I knew I wanted to do a one-woman show. I didn't know exactly how it was going to culminate. And the reason I didn't know that is because my life hadn't happened. So the show is about in a nutshell, being single in LA and finding pole dancing class. And it covers, all these awkward moments, all these awkward things when you're, growing up in the Midwest with Midwestern parents' morals and discovering your sexuality and discovering these awkward, relationships with men and, finding yourself in LA and just having all these weird things happen. And I found that when I talk about things that are the most painful and the most embarrassing, that's the stuff that people want to hear about the most. So.
I was going to say, because it opens yourself and they're like going,
right.
Is she going to tell me something that we really want to know about her?
Right.
But does it matter? So you've done 3 one-woman plays, so to speak, or sections, groups. Were they all directed by different people?
Well, I worked with Paula Killen a lot. She developed, I developed the shows with her. She's kind of like, people always want to know, what does developed mean? What does that mean?
Talk about that, because she's developed a lot of one-person shows.
And she's really, really good at it.
What is developing compared to directing?
A developer is kind of like the director for the words. So I would come, I meet with her once a week, and I would write all week, and I would come and I would read her what I wrote, and she would say, okay, let's take this is great, let's move this around, let's this goes with this, and this is the structure. She just helps you, she's someone to bounce ideas off of, and also point you in the right direction.
But your director, Melora Hardin,
right,
she doesn't do that?
She did not work with me so much on the writing. Her forte is acting. She's an incredible actress and an incredible coach, incredible. So I had spent...
she directed you?
She directed the acting of the show, which I really needed. I spent so long writing it. I was so stuck in the words. And to me, I thought I was standing on stage and really emoting. And she just said, Adria, no, you're just saying the words. I really... It was like she had to shake me, and it did.
But so you wrote them, and Paula helped you write them,
right?
And then you need someone to move you around.
Yeah, to get me out of the words, to get me into my body, into my emotion, and
how does she move you around?
How does Melora do that?
Do you move around the stage? Do you use lights? Do you use music?
I do move around the stage. I do a lot of characters, a lot of different characters. I do all these different guys that I've dated. I do the man that sold me the stripper shoes. Sheila, who's the woman who teaches the class, Sheila Kelly, and her character is really funny and really, she's so great.
Do you use dialects?
I use dialects. There's a Hasidic woman in my show, and I talk to her about the stripping class. She, this is a really
stripper class guide
yeah,
to a
yeah,
Hasidic
yeah.
wedding.
Well, I'm having this conversation. I'm running. I jog around my neighborhood, and I live in this Hasidic neighborhood. And she came out to me, and she wanted to know how I kept my figure. And I thought about telling her about my stripping class, and I thought, oh my God, can I talk about this with this woman? And I took a deep breath, and I told her about, you know, how we do this kind of movement and everything, and that's how I keep my stomach so flat. And she, you know, said, oh, because my stomach's so big, I've had 14 children. And I said to her, you know what? You should just fall in love with that flesh that you have from your babies. It is so sexy and womanly. And I learned that from Sheila. That's, you know, what the stripper class is all about. It's not about, you know, dancing for your man. It's really about embracing your sexuality and your body and falling in love with yourself and feeling like a goddess.
And does she takes on the character, so you answer in her language?
Yes.
Do you do like her dialect?
There's a whole, you know, she has her whole physicality.
I was going to say, do you change your?
Yeah. And
do you put anything else on?
No, I don't
just
do
get
any
into?
costumes. We thought about that, but it was just really. I mean, what happens with the costume is I start out as a little girl and I have a little schoolgirl outfit on, and then as the show goes on, I take off more and more layers until finally, at the end of the show, I do a whole striptease. So I'm in my little. Yeah, I take off a lot of clothes. But
So
that's
you
really how we use
change
the
your
wardrobe.
characters by the way you stand, by the way you talk, by the way.
Yeah. I do a lot of male characters. I do Sheila. I do my mother. But everybody has their. My mother does this with her hair. Every character has their voice and their little gesture that they do, and apparently that works because people know exactly what's going on. They're not lost.
And how do you find time to do this? Did you continue to take classes? Are you still taking acting classes?
I'm not taking acting class right now. For a long time, I took acting class, and then I started taking Sheila's class, and I felt like that was my acting class
You
for
mean
a
your
long
stripper
time.
class?
Yeah, I really.
I mean your pole class?
Yeah, I really felt like this is what my acting class is right now. I mean, it gave me so much courage and so much. Just like I felt like I had this secret confidence. It gave me so much confidence in myself, and yeah, I mean, really, that's what acting class is. I think facing your fears and being brave, taking a risk. That's what you do in acting class. So
that's so great.
Yeah.
Adria, I'm so glad you came today.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to take class? Or are you going to? I'm going to give you Sheila's website.
Don't give me a poll.
No, you need a poll. Everybody needs a poll.
Keep the polls away. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Keep writing to 777 Figueroa, South Figueroa. I'm losing it today. She set a poll and I lost it. 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. See you next time.